The same traits that helped you build your career might be the exact traits slowly creating distance in your marriage and making it harder for your kids to actually really know you. Your drive, your discipline, your independence, your problem solving, your ability to take charge, stay composed, get results, and keep moving. You see, those things probably made you more valuable at work. But at home, those same traits can come across very differently. So today, I'm going to walk you through the 4 success traits that are quietly sabotaging your family if they go unchecked. And in full disclosure, I only know about these because I was making these mistakes myself. So as you listen, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Which one of these shows up most in me right now? Let's get into it. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. All right, welcome back to the Dad Nation podcast, brother. Listen, this episode is for the career-driven family man. The guy who wants to win in business, yes, but not at the cost of his marriage, not at the cost of his kids, not at the cost of becoming someone emotionally distant, overworked, or a half-present version of himself that he never actually wanted to become. And today's conversation is one I think a lot of men need, especially the competent ones, especially the men who are respected professionally, the men who carry a lot, the men who are used to solving problems, leading teams, making decisions, and getting things done. Because those men often walk into family life assuming, hey, if I just keep doing what works here, that should work at home too. But that's not always how it goes. In fact, sometimes the very traits that make you excellent in business make you harder to live with at home. Not because these traits are bad, not because ambition is bad, but not because discipline is bad, but because different environments require different expressions of strength. Brother, if you're listening to this today, you can't lead your wife the same way you lead a team. You can't relate to your kids the same way that you solve problems at work. And you can't build intimacy the same way you build a business. And I think a lot of men, I feel, are exhausted because they feel this tension at home, but they don't have language for it. Now, why? Why do I know this? Because I talk to this man every single day. Either I'm coaching him, or I'm talking to him about coaching him, or he's hit me up in the DMs or emailing me. And these are the men who are thinking this. I'm doing my best. I'm working hard. I'm providing. I'm carrying a lot. But why does my wife still feel distant? Why do my kids seem to open up more to their mom? Why does home sometimes feel like the one place where I don't know what to do? And that's what we're getting into today. Not fluff, not hype, just something honest and useful. What I'm going to talk about today is the 4 traits making you successful at work, but sabotaging you at home. And now, before we jump into it, I want to be clear from the start. This episode is not about shaming successful men. This is about helping good men see what they've been missing. Because I really believe this. A lot of good men are not struggling at home because they don't care. They're struggling at home because they're using the wrong tools in the wrong rooms. And if that feels like you, if all this resonates, this episode is for you, brother. So I want to say one more thing here. This tension between work and family is very, very real. This is not, if you're feeling this today, this is not something you made up in your head. Okay. Pew Research found that 63% of dads say they spend too little time with their children. And among fathers who feel that way, 62% say work obligations are the main reason. That means that most dads already feel this tension, and most of them point straight to work as that reason. So if you're feeling stressed out, you feeling stretched thin, you feel like you're carrying a lot, if you feel like you're constantly trying to switch gears between the provider mode and family mode, listen, you're not crazy, you're not weak, you are just in a real tension that a lot of men feel. But just because that tension is real doesn't mean that the pattern is okay. Because if we never stop to examine the pattern, what starts as something like, well, I'm just working hard for my family, can slowly become, I'm emotionally unavailable for my family. And that is the drift. Not one huge explosion, right? Not one dramatic collapse. It's just a slow drift. And a lot of men don't notice it because they still think, well, I'm here. I'm paying for the things. I'm handling the responsibilities. I'm doing my part. And yeah, brother, don't get me wrong. Those things matter. But hear me say this. Presence is not the same as proximity. Provision is not the same as connection. And competence is not the same as intimacy. So let's get into the first trait, okay? I know there's going to be some of you. I know certainly me at several different points in my life. But this trait is when a man chooses control over connection. You see, at work, control is useful. Honestly, a lot of you listening have probably built your lives because you know how to take control. You organize chaos. You make decisions. You create structure. And you see what needs to happen and you move. That's actually a gift, right? But at home, control can create a very different atmosphere, right? Because what feels like leadership to you can feel like pressure to everyone else. You see, at work, people may appreciate your decisiveness, but at home, your wife may experience it as micromanaging. Your kids may experience it as correction before connection. And you may not even mean it that way. And that's the hard part. This is rarely about intent. This is about impact. This is the man who walks through the front door and the first thing he says are things like, why is this out? Why are the kids doing that? Why are we running late? Why is the house like this? Why didn't this get done? What's the plan? What's the schedule? What needs fixing? You see, he thinks he's helping, but his wife just feels critiqued and his kids feel tense. And that's not because leadership is bad, but it's because home is not primarily a place for control. It's a place for relationship. Can I say that again? Home is not primarily a place for control. It's a place for relationship. And if your presence constantly raises the emotional temperature in the house, your family may start bracing for you instead of relaxing with you, especially with your kids. Because your children don't just remember what you taught, they remember how it felt to be around you, how it felt to be in your presence. I know a lot of you listeners are faith-based people. There's a scripture from Ephesians 6-4 that speaks to this directly. It says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. That's not a command against leadership. It's a warning against the kind of leadership that stirs up frustration instead of trust. And I think a lot of good dads provoke without even realizing it. A lot of times this is happening, you're not even aware. Not because they don't love the children, but because they bring a constant tone of pressure into the home. Why? Because there's always something to improve. There's always something to correct. There's always a better way to do it. There's always one more instruction, right? And eventually your kids may stop feeling safe enough to just be themselves around you. And your wife too. Hey, listen, that was me. That was me. My wife didn't feel comfortable being herself around me because I was constantly trying to control everything around me. And brother, this is where the shift needs to happen, okay? Because control may create results in business, but connection creates safety at home. Your family does not need you to stop leading, but they need you to lead in a way that makes them feel safe. And sometimes the strongest thing a man can do when he gets home is not take charge. Sometimes it's slowing down. Sometimes it's kneeling down at eye level with his kid. Sometimes it's hugging his wife before asking a single question. Sometimes it's noticing the emotional climate before trying to improve the operational one. That's leadership too. It's just a different kind. And if this point hits you, it may be because you've confused control with care, and they are not the same thing. All right, let's move on to the second trait, using logic over emotion. This is very common. I think probably 99% of the men have struggled with this at one point or another. Here's why. At work, logic makes you valuable, right? But at home, over-reliance on logic can make you feel emotionally unavailable. A lot of men are trained, sometimes by personality, sometimes by culture, sometimes by profession, to go straight into problem-solving mode. You see, you hear a problem, and your mind starts to build a solution. And that's useful. Like, that's incredible in business. It makes you a very valuable man. That's why people trust you. But in your marriage, especially, that can backfire real fast. I'm laughing because it's backfired for me many times. Because when your wife brings you frustration, sadness, anxiety, disappointment, or any kind of emotional weight, she's not always asking you for a problem to solve, right? Sometimes she's inviting you into her experience. And if all that she gets back is analysis or advice or correction, she's going to walk away feeling very unheard. Not because your solution was bad, but because she wasn't asking for a solution in the first place. She was asking for connection. Same with your kids, right? Same thing applies to your children. You see, when a son or daughter comes to you upset, embarrassed, frustrated, scared, or ashamed, and your first instinct is to teach or to lecture or to correct, they can very quickly learn, Dad is not where I go with emotion, right? Because if your kids only experience you as a corrector, not a comforter, they'll start editing themselves around you. There's been research on father involvement in this direction. A 2024 systematic review found that when researchers looked at both the quantity and quality of father involvement, greater father involvement was linked with more adaptive emotion regulation in children under several conditions. And the review's broader discussion notes that father involvement has emerged over decades of research as an important factor in children's social and emotional development. What does that mean? Well, that means that your emotional presence matters, not just your paycheck, not just your rules, not just whether you're physically in the house. Your emotional presence shapes your child. That should wake us up, right? Because many guys think, this was me as well at one point in my life, I'm a good dad because I provide, I protect, I show up. And yes, those things matter. But if your child doesn't know how to come to you with fear, sadness, insecurity, failure, or disappointment, then something essential is missing. And listen, in marriage, the same thing is true. There's also strong relationship research showing that work-family conflict hurts couple relationships. There was a meta-analysis of 49 samples from 33 papers that found a significant negative relationship between work-family conflict and couple relationship quality. What does that mean in plain language? When work stress spills into family life, relationship quality tends to go down. And that lands right here. Because this is one of the main ways that work spills into home, because it's affecting you emotionally. Because what happens is you've been on all day, right? You've been solving all day. You've been containing all day. And you've been performing competence all day. And then you come home and you keep operating from that same mode. And now your wife is talking to your brain while hoping to connect to your heart. Let me say that one again. Now your wife ends up talking to your brain while hoping to connect to your heart. That, my friend, is the gap. Okay? Another passage for you, Proverbs 20, verse 5 says, the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. This is a beautiful picture of what a husband and father can become. Not just a fixer, a man who can draw out the heart. You see, that takes patience. That takes questions. That takes restraint. And it takes listening longer than what feels efficient. And yes, inefficient is exactly how it can feel to a high performer. It can feel very inefficient to a career-driven man. And that's okay, because intimacy is not built through efficiency. It's built through attunement. So maybe the question for you is not, do I know how to solve problems? You already do. We know that. We've established that. The better question is, do the people closest to me feel emotionally safe with me? Now, that's a different skill. And for many successful men, this is the skill gap. All right. Now let's move to point number 3, and this trait number 3. This third trait is when men choose independence over intimacy. And this one is huge. Hey, brother, let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this. Are you winning at work, but quietly kind of losing ground at home? Maybe you're the guy people rely on. You stay calm in meetings. You carry that pressure all day. And you kind of wear that like a badge of honor. But maybe when you walk through the front door at home, your wife feels distant. Conversations feel shorter. And instead of being excited to come home, maybe work feels easier. Nothing is broken, but something is slowly drifting. And if you're telling yourself right now, I'm going to fix this when things slow down, or I'm going to fix this when things get easier, if you're honest with yourself, you already know they won't slow down. They won't get easier. Well, the high-performance husband is for men who are done coasting. It's for men who want to win at home like they win at work. You see, this isn't therapy. It's not about fixing your wife. It's not for men who want quick hacks. It's for men who want to be calm under pressure, strong in their body, clear in their thinking, and to become the man that your wife and kids look up to with pride. So if you're listening to this and you know that what got you here won't get you where you want to go, I want you to go to dadnationco.com/accelerator or click the link in the show notes below, and then you can apply to join this accelerator and join myself and many other like-minded men who are leveling up in their home, in their health, and their happiness. They're winning all year long. It's a 12-month mentorship. It's going to change your life. All right, now let's jump back into the episode. This third trait is when men choose independence over intimacy. And this one is huge, huge for guys who love to work, high performers, career-driven men, because independence is often one of the reasons you've succeeded, right? You don't need hand-holding. You don't wait around. You carry weight. You figure it out. You keep moving. That's admirable, right? But in marriage and in fatherhood, too much independence actually creates distance, because self-reliance can easily become emotional isolation. And you see, a lot of men are physically present and logically responsible, but they're emotionally locked down, right? They carry pressure alone. They think alone. They stress alone. They process alone. They suffer alone. And then they call that strength. Is that you? I know that was me. But from the outside, what their wife often experiences is not strength. It's distance. You see, she feels like she's living beside him, not with him. She knows his responsibilities. She knows his schedule. She knows his workload. But she doesn't know his inner world. And over time, that becomes lonely for her and the kids. Because your kids need more than your provision. They need access to your humanity. They need to know what matters to you. They need to know what you feel, what you're learning, what you wrestle with, how you handle hard days, how you recover, how you ask for help, right? That's what forms them. Pew's research on fathers is telling here as well. Again, 63% of dads say they spend too little time with their kids. And among those fathers, work obligations are by far the most cited reason. So what I want to point out is this. For many men, work obligations isn't just about literal hours. It's about what work trains you to become. It trains you to compartmentalize. It trains you to stay composed. It trains you to handle pressure internally. It trains you to keep producing no matter how you feel. So even when you're off at work, you may still be functioning like a man in professional armor. And armor may help you survive pressure, but armor also prevents closeness. Okay? You can't be deeply intimate with people while staying emotionally armored all the time. That's true in marriage. That's true in fatherhood. That's true in friendship too. And this is why so many men feel so isolated, even when they're surrounded by people who love them, because they are known for what they do. but not known for who they are. Let me say that one again. Because men are known for what they do. They are not known for who they are. And sometimes that starts at home, because home becomes the last place they know how to open up. I love this passage from Mark 8:6. I mean, it's used in a couple different contexts, but it says this: what good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? And I think for a lot of men, the question is not just about salvation in the abstract, okay? This is also about what kind of man you're becoming while you're busy gaining ground. Are you building a life that looks impressive from the outside while being inaccessible on the inside? Or another great question might be, are you getting stronger in competence while getting weaker in closeness? Because if so, that cost is too high, my friend. I paid it. It's too high. Your wife does not only need your reliability, she needs your partnership, right? Your kids don't only need your stability, they need your nearness. Because independence can be useful, but intimacy requires openness. And that, my friend, is a risk many successful men have still not learned how to take. Okay, let's move on to the fourth one. And this is probably the biggest of all, and probably the one that I have struggled with the most, and it's when we choose performance over presence. You see, at work, performance is rewarded. That's the scoreboard. Output, results, revenue, growth, execution, wins. Getting those wins. And that environment teaches you over and over again that your value is tied to what you produce. Right? So many men feel this way. But if you spend enough time in that environment, right, it can quietly become how you relate to yourself. And it can even become how you relate to other people. And before you know it, everything gets evaluated. Everything gets measured, optimized, improved. But your family is not asking your performance. They're asking for your presence. And those two things are not the same thing. Right? Here's a crazy statistic for you. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that in 2024, fathers with children under 18 averaged 1.09 hours per day caring for and helping household children as a main activity. Now, for fathers whose youngest child was between 6 and 12, the average was 0.86 hours per day, about 52 minutes. 52 minutes a day. Now, I want you to think about that. That's roughly an hour. And for many dads of school-age kids, even less than that in primary child care time. Now, again, this is not about shaming us as men, but it's about waking us up. Because if the quantity is already that limited, then the quality matters even more. Right? What do your wife and kids actually get from you in that 1 hour that's available? Do they get your eyes? Do they get your attention? Do they get your curiosity, your energy, your softness? Do they get the real you? Or do they get the distracted man that's scrolling his phone, mentally replaying the day, checking his email, half listening, waiting to recover? You know, that question matters. What version of you are they getting? Because here's another thing that we get wrong. Right? We always think about the big stuff, the core memories that shape our kids. But our children are deeply shaped by repeated moments. Not just big vacations, not just birthday parties, not just Christmas mornings, repeated moments. Moments around the dinner table, bedtime moments, road trip moments, Saturday morning moments, a 5-minute conversation after school, that 2-minute hug before bed, that short answer to a hard question that you totally forgot about. You see, those moments accumulate, and your wife feels this too. A lot of marriages don't break because of one huge betrayal. I said that in the beginning of the episode, right? They thin out because of chronic inattention, not hatred, not hostility, just what I would call a low-grade absence. He's there, but he's not really there, right? You ever feel that way? Your wife ever tell you that? I know but she told me. I've heard that many times before. You're here, but you're not here. One time she said to me, I feel like I'm married to the shadow of who you used to be, the man you used to be. Woof. That was hard to hear. You see, she can feel it. right? And eventually she stops reaching out as much. She stops trying as much. She stops expecting as much. And that's how distance grows, because she can't emotionally afford to continue to care. Another passage for you here, Matthew 6:21. This is actually where Jesus says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now, this verse hits hard because it cuts through your good intentions. Because a lot of men sincerely intend to be present fathers and husbands. But intention is not the same as attention. Okay? And attention is often the truest evidence of what has our heart. Let me say that one again. Your intention is not the same as your attention, because your attention is often the truest evidence of what has our heart. And if your family consistently gets the leftovers of your energy, then they are not experiencing your love the way you think they are. It's a very valuable lesson I had to learn. And for the man listening who might be getting defensive, if you're listening to this and you're hearing a little bit, you're feeling a little bit triggered, I get it. Because many men hear this and think, what am I supposed to do? Right? Quit working? Stop building? Just become passive? No, brother, that's not what I'm saying. That's not the answer. The answer is not less ambition. The answer is reordered ambition. A man can be deeply driven and deeply present. It's possible to have both. But presence does not happen by accident. It must be chosen, protected, practiced. And frankly, for many high-performing men, presence is actually harder than performance. We can perform in the boardroom all day. We can make proposals. We can give, pitches, whatever. We can close deals, close contracts all day. Presence, that's a different story. You want me to lock in? But here's why. Because performance gives immediate feedback. Presence usually doesn't. But presence is what your family will remember long after the income targets, long after the launch, long after the season you thought was temporary. So let me make an important turn in the conversation here. All right. The point of this episode is not that discipline is bad, or leadership is bad, or ambition is bad, or strength is bad. That's not the point at all. The point is that the traits that work beautifully in one environment can do damage in another if they're not translated properly. You do not need to become less of a man. You need to become a more integrated man. A man who knows when to take charge and when to slow down. A man who knows when to solve and also when to sit with someone. A man who knows when strength looks like decisiveness and also when strength looks like tenderness. A man who knows that success at work does not excuse disconnection at home. You see, that is maturity. Brother, that is wisdom. And honestly, after talking to thousands of men at this point and helping them in my coaching or through the podcast, I honestly think that that's the challenge a lot of career-driven men are facing right now. Not whether they can achieve. It's a no-brainer. They already can. They've proven that they can. The deeper question is, can you be powerful without becoming hardened? Can you be driven without becoming distant? Can you be productive without becoming emotionally unavailable? Can you build a strong life without weakening the people closest to you? That is the test. Not just can I win, but who am I becoming while I win? Okay, so let's make this practical. You know me, we got to take this to the ground level, right? We got to take it off the top shelf. What are we going to do with this? I want to give you 4 simple shifts to take from this episode. 4 things you can do tonight. They're not theoretical, they're real, tactical, okay? Number 1, if you walk into your house and you immediately start correcting, tightening, or improving, I want you to pause. Here's the shift. Before you correct, connect. But when you walk through the door, greet your wife, touch your kids, hug your kids, smile. Lower the emotional temperature of your home. And let the first contribution to your home be peace, not pressure. Let me say that one again. Let your first contribution to your home when you walk through the door be peace, not pressure. The second shift you can make is ask one more question. before giving a solution. Okay? So when your wife shares something hard, or maybe your kid opens up to you, I want you to resist the urge to fix it immediately. Here's some questions you can ask. Hey, do you want me to help you solve this, or you just want me to listen? Right? Just let me know. Or, hey, tell me more about that. Or, what did that feel like for you? This one extra question that can change the whole moment. I don't know, which one of these you want to make, but keep listening. All right. Shift number 3. Let your family see something real in you. Now, I'm not talking about performative vulnerability, not some dramatic speech, right? Just let them see you be human. Let your kids hear you apologize. Let your wife hear you admit that you've been carrying something difficult. Let them hear you say, yeah, I had a hard day, or I was wrong. Son, I was wrong. Or I'm trying to grow in this myself. That kind of honesty builds trust. All right. The 4th shift you can make is protect one daily window of undistracted presence. Maybe it's dinner time. Make a no phone zone around your dinner table. No phones. Simple. Maybe it's bedtime. Maybe it's the drive home before you walk inside. Maybe it's the 20 minutes after work with your phone away. But make one part of the day sacred. Sacred. Because listen, if dads are averaging around 1.09 hours a day in primary childcare activities overall, and 0.86 for fathers with the youngest child from 6 to 12 years old, then wasting that small window of time matters so much more than you think. And listen, you don't need to become a monk. You just need a rhythm, right? That's it. Let me wrap up our conversation. Let me wrap up the episode with this. A lot of good men are not like one dramatic decision away from losing their families. They are 1,000 small disconnected moments away. And that's what makes this dangerous, because it's subtle, no big scandal, no giant collapse, no obvious disaster, just a home that slowly stops feeling warm, a wife who slowly stops feeling pursued, kids who slowly stop opening up, a man who slowly becomes more known for what he provides than how he loves. And years later, he looks back and wonders how it got there. I do not want that for you. I really don't. Because I know the men listening to this show, right? You're trying to carry a lot well, but good intentions aren't always enough. You have to become aware of that pattern. You have to see how your success traits are landing at home. You have to learn how to ask better questions, how to make adjustments while there's still time. And there is still time. That's the good news. If you can hear this, there's still time. Time to soften up what has become sharp. Time to open what has become too closed. Time to reconnect where things have drifted. Time to build a different atmosphere in your home. And maybe, just maybe, that starts tonight, brother. And maybe tonight, instead of bringing your work mode through the front door, you take one deep breath in the driveway and you ask this question: what does my family need from me right now? Not what still needs to get done. Not what problem do I need to solve. Not how can I optimize this evening? How can I be more efficient? Just what does my family need from me right now? And that question alone might change more than you realize, because at the end of the day, your wife and kids are not looking for a perfect man. I hope you've heard me say that. It's not what this is about. They're looking for a man who is with them, a man who's reachable, a man who's safe, a man who's present, a man who can lead without dominating, listen without fixing, open without collapsing, love without always turning everything into a project. You see, that kind of man is strong. And unfortunately, that kind of man is rare. But fortunately, that kind of man builds a legacy. So here's my challenge for you this week. Take the 4 points we talked about today. Choosing control over connection. How we get stuck in the trap of choosing logic over emotion, choosing independence over intimacy, choosing performance over presence. And I want you to ask yourself, which one shows up for me the most right now? Which one is helping me at work but hurting me at home? Which one is my family feeling the most? Be honest, right? I mean, you have to be. No one's winning if you're not. And pick one change to make this week, not 10. Pick one change. One change your wife can feel. One change your kids can feel. One change that turns your success into something your family actually experiences as love. And listen, man, if this episode hit home for you today, send it to another brother who needs it. Help him out, because there's a ton. Like I said earlier, I see this every day. There's a ton of guys, millions of guys struggling with this exact same tension, and they don't even have words for it yet. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, this is me, I'm doing well out there, but I know something's off at home, don't ignore that. Okay, pay attention to it. And because that awareness might be the beginning of a very important shift in your home. And listen, if that's you, drop a comment, right? Send me an email, send me a DM, use a carrier pigeon, smoke signal. I don't care, man. But let's connect, right? Because through the podcast and my coaching, I've helped a lot of men see success at work and at home, right? To live a fully integrated life where they win professionally and personally. Because some people would say you can't have it all. And hear me, brother, I would wholeheartedly disagree. And if you're hearing that message, that you can't have it all, take a look around the room, because it's a sign that you're in the wrong room. So let's have a conversation, because you can join me in my room with all the other like-minded men who are winning in every arena. All right? Listen, that's all for me today. I hope you have an incredible week. I hope you take action on one of these things. Hope this episode has resonated with you powerfully. I hope you've not felt shame, but I hope you've felt empowered and encouraged and equipped. Listen, as always, I'm in your corner. See you next week. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. All right, remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.